Welcome to Idea Tennis, where we challenge ideas, elevate thinking, and serve up conversation that make you question everything.
It's interesting because boundaries aren't walls.
Mm.
They're doors that you choose to open and close. You set the terms for the boundaries. What you allow is what people will do. Most people know how much money they have in the bank. But what no one knows is how much time they have left on earth. Boundaries are not barriers, they are bridges to you being able to live your best life.
Welcome back to Idea Tennis. Setting and enforcing boundaries is the topic of the conversation today that you're going to learn about between me and Jessica. So here's the goal. The goal is help entrepreneurs protect their energy and focus. We're going to tie this back into our mini series around the 5 Ps, and we're going to tie it back into principles. So if you think about principle when it comes to setting and enforcing boundaries, so boundaries are the foundation of long-term success. And here's a pattern for you to look for: overcommitting, saying yes to everything, and the burnout piece. Here's a promise that aligns with that 5 Ps. Strong boundaries allow greater productivity and peace. And the prediction is the more you respect your time, the more others will too. And last but not least, purpose. How do you apply it here? Set one non-negotiable boundaries this week. That's what we're going to ask you to do. So welcome back. Jessica, good morning to you, lady. How are you doing, lady?
Good morning. I am doing fantastic. How are you today?
I am doing utterly fantastic. Let's go. Let me top it off and do one up you. Let's call it one up. Let me one you up. So, what do you think about the conversation for today?
It's interesting because boundaries aren't walls. They're doors that you choose to open and close. You set the terms for the boundaries. What you allow is what people will do. So many of us don't put up boundaries for some of the reasons we've been talking about the past few weeks: fear of criticism, judgment. What are people going to think? Ego, even in some ways, unhealthy humility, where you don't feel like you're good enough. I think that when you're able to realize that the boundaries you set the tone for how people treat you, speak to you, deal with you, respect you, boundaries look completely different.
You know, you are a powerful speaker, by the way. Let me give you some depths on that one, because boundaries are the things that really a lot of people have struggles with. Because when you say boundaries, you gotta alienate people, you gotta say no to people, you gotta cut people off, you gotta set up framework for people to process with. Because just like you mentioned the door piece, right? That's the only way to my house is to the front door. If I catch you the back door, we got problems, right? But oftentimes people allow people to come into their space to windows or doors that they don't have the right kind of security for, and they get ambushed. And I hate when somebody ambushed my energy throughout the day. It happens a lot. When somebody show up on your ambush, you're like, man, I wasn't expecting that. No, I'm trapped into this space. So then if we look at that experience that people have when it comes to people violating their boundaries, then what will you encourage people to do to transform that experience, like the experience transformer? How would they help them transform the experience into something that is useful and helpful to them versus something that can hold them back?
I think when you realize that setting boundaries isn't something negative, that, in my opinion, it's quite the opposite. It's having the courage to love yourself, to respect yourself, to know that sometimes the boundaries we set are disappointing to other people, but that's not our problem.
Mm.
It really isn't. We can't take on how other people are going to feel because we set a boundary. And sometimes the boundary is something as simple as don't call me before 9 in the morning, or don't call me before after 10 o'clock at night, or don't ask me to do something during the week. Whatever the boundary is, those are the terms in which you set of how people are going to deal with you. It's not that you are limiting what you're capable of doing. You're doing the opposite. You're limiting what other people are doing to affect you so that you can thrive. You can be the best version of you. If you know that you're not a morning person, you being Jessica, you're not a morning person. Don't call me before a certain time in the morning. You could call. I'm not going to answer. That's what voicemail is for. We live in this world where, because we have cell phones,
Mm-hmm.
people think that if they text you or they call you, you are required to respond or pick up. At what point did it change where I pick up because I could speak? It's a good time. I remember growing up, we had a phone and we had an answering machine. And when somebody called the house and it wasn't a good time to speak, the answering machine would pick up and the person would leave a message. And my dad would call back when it was a good time to speak. Those were the boundaries that we had then. They were almost unspoken. Now it's like people call you, they get your voicemail, then they're sending you a text message saying, I just called you. And in my head, I'm thinking to myself, I know, I saw. Why do people feel entitled to that access to
Mm-hmm.
others?
Yeah, I read this. You ever heard this guy named Dan Kennedy? He's like a genius marketer. He's an old guy right now, but
I
he's
think so.
been, yeah. So I read a lot of his books. And there's something that he does that I was like, man, one day I want to get to this level. But this guy doesn't have a cell phone. He say he doesn't have a cell phone, and he use fax machines still. Yes, but it's interesting how he do it. So he has his office and his assistant. She fax to him like the his clientele information, right? Or she mails him also. She mails him his work stuff. But he was saying that he doesn't allow people to access him, and if they're gonna access him, they gotta do by fax, right? Because you're on the fax machine, you're gonna fax what like a one pager that make people think about exactly what they're gonna send to him. So he makes sure that he shrinks it down to that one pager thing, and but he doesn't allow people to call him, so he doesn't have a cell phone. He's off the grid with that stuff. But it was interesting to listen to how he set these boundaries, and he was like, "I get a lot done because people don't ambush me, right? They don't interrupt my day, and they only get to connect to with me through my assistant. When my assistant only connects with me through the mail, which is crazy, right? But he have his stuff laid out. I'm like, man, well, I want to get to a life where people don't ambush me, don't call and show up to my house because they know where I live, and the only way to access me is the boundaries that I set up. And to get your life that way, it takes a lot of work. But oftentimes people feel guilty, like you said, with the cell phone thing.
Because he is protecting what fuels his energy, his hustle, his focus, his passion. He's
Mm-hmm.
setting the terms of how people have access to him. And
Mm-hmm.
because of that, he's in control of the dynamic. He's in control of his time, his
Mm-hmm.
energy, his work. He determines what's important and what's urgent, not someone else. People get caught up and don't realize the difference. I don't owe you an explanation of why it's not a good time to speak, but I should have enough respect for you instead of ignoring you and ghosting you to send you a quick reply back saying, hello, and saying, I would love to chat. Right now is not a good time. I will call you, I will reach out when I have the time to chat with you.
Mm.
But so many of us feel compelled to do things that are on other people's time and schedule and not always on ours. And so then what happens to what we want?
Here's what messed people up. I'm gonna call it that social media thing that happened, right? Because I think social media has turned us all into slaves. Me myself, are sometimes slave to it, to the mechanized lifestyle, right? A mechanized human being, but it because easy to share, easy to upload something, and easy to put stuff out there. We've been working like slaves for in a system that's not giving us back, right? Because we're the target, we're the product now. But it shifts our mindset when it comes to, oh my God, what am I doing with my time? Like it's so easy for me to go get trapped into these different algorithms and they mechanize you into a certain kind of way, and you turn into a machine to feed this thing every day. So now we lost control of our boundaries, our way of restricting things from like infiltrating our life, and we don't notice how much it's like eating away at that the habit or that boundary setting skills that we need to have because of all these other platforms that we've tied into, and they little by little just eating us away, and like, oh my God, I'm losing control of my time. So it's very hard to stay disciplined, like we talked about last time, because of all of these things that are interfering, that are violating our boundaries. So now, what would you have to give up, right, to get control back of your time, your energy, attention, and your money, right? What would you have to give up to get those things back and take control of those things to have a more, I would say, useful life?
I think when you realize that you don't have to say yes to everything, that becomes you taking back your power and your control. If you say yes to everyone that asks you for help, speaking from a business perspective,
Mm-hmm.
when does that allow you time for playing clients? When does that allow you time to reset and recharge for yourself? I admit,
Mm-hmm.
over the years, I have probably said yes more times than I would like, because
Transparency.
I have a heart of service and I want to help the world. But I can't help the world if I can't help myself. Me saying yes to people always wasn't serving me. Yes, it was serving them. But at some point, it became harmful and hurtful to me in my business growth. I also realized that as I was in the process of evolving and growing my business, because I wasn't where I would have liked to have been, I needed to say yes to some of that free work
Mm-hmm.
to be able to have an exchange of service for review, testimonials, stories, validation. And yes, when we're growing business and we're just starting off, that is a part of the process. But at some point, it transitions. At some point, you've shown your worth, you've added your value, you've grown, you're continuing to grow. And now the yes should be limited.
I would say it's a difficult transition, by the way, because when you're trying to build awareness in your business, man, you gotta say yes to a lot of things because you want people to know about you, to know you exist, to know what you have, and it's gonna burn you out because I think the awareness phase of any kind of exposure to your business, that's the part that burns you out, right? But once you get to a place where people start desiring your thing, now you can start pulling back some of those things. You can create a lot more boundary because now, like, oh, they desire what I have now, and you can work on that. But initially, you're gonna run into that burnout with the awareness phase because the only way people gonna know you exist is for you to get out there and do a lot of talking, sharing, saying yes. So I think that's probably the hard part. A lot of people just is like transition from the awareness phase to desire phase and the interest phase, so forth and so on, because now they gotta do a lot of work to become known. So how do you make that transition? I would ask you that question. How would you make that transition?
The stronger your boundaries are, the more people will respect you, that
Mm-hmm.
you can set boundaries and still have a heart of service. You can set boundaries and be respectful. You can set boundaries without having to explain them. And when you set those boundaries, it allows you a sense of freedom, because now you're free to say yes to the things that serve you, the things that you want, the things that are going to help you grow and get you closer to your goals and your dreams. But without those boundaries, it's almost as if you're held captive, because you feel the need or the desire to say yes to everything because you don't know how to set the boundaries. You're afraid of how somebody's going to feel because you set the boundaries, that you don't know how they're going to judge you. Like, who cares? Who cares?
Hmm. I think the people that can set the best boundaries are the folks that are on high demand. Because if somebody's demand, you can, okay, now I'm getting 10 phone calls a day. Ooh, I'm popular or I'm recognized, so I can say no to things. But I think it's hard to get to a place where you can, I'm on high demand, so I can start saying no and saying yes to the right people. Because no, you're gonna like, this is my filtering system. So no, these are the people I want to be around with, I want to hang out with, I want to do business with, I want to have a conversation with, I want to spend my day with. And those things takes time to get there because not everybody start off being popular or start off being interesting, right? You gotta build up the interest, you gotta build up the demand, you gotta make sure that you got the supply, but you gotta build up the demand for it. And that takes a lot of work. So now what's your system of filtering out the people that you like to work with? Let me ask you that question. What is your filtering system?
They challenge me. I love people that working with them is a challenge for me. A challenge in a good way.
Okay. You
You
talking
know,
about
a
like challenge
challenge.
that piss you off, frustrate you, or a challenge like, I need to figure that out. Like, what is?
Yes. Need to figure it out. Get me to think different, to see different perspective, to to frame things in a way that perhaps I had never thought of before. that
Mm,
allows me to engage with them in a more meaningful capacity. I think that's incredibly important. For me as a coach, I don't want people that are just going to say yes to everything that I do. I tell them
mm,
to do. I want people like you question me, but guess what? I give it back to you. I started to question why. I want to make sure that the answer that you're giving, you understand why you're giving it, that you have thought about it, that it's not just, the quick yes, the quick no, but really that there's been thought and consideration as to why you're saying yes or why you're saying no. When I work with somebody, I want to make sure that they value my experience and my time. If
mm,
I'm working with you as a coach and you don't complete the assignments, let's say,
mm.
why should I continue to work with you? Because
Well,
you
I'm at,
pay me? That to me, money's not
mm,
the motivator. Remember that. Money's not the motivator. So why would I continue to work with someone who's not taking on the growth process? Because that's ultimately what it is, their growth process, their mindset, their level up time is not taking it seriously or serious enough to be able to set boundaries for themselves that help them stay aligned with the things that are important for them to do. Because saying no to a meaningless random meeting that somebody invites you to sit in on
mm-hmm.
now frees you up to have time to do the things that are important, that matter, that get you closer to your goals.
Well, I would definitely, sorry about my alarm. But here's the thing. Sometimes when you challenge me, I like this challenge piece because it's very important. Now we just like, Jess, do you take your vitamins today? Do you drink your supplements today? You're a little bit off. Like, what's in your teacup, right? Sometimes I gotta message you and figure out what did you take? Like, actually, right? Did you take vitamins today, Jess?
I did. I took my women's health essentials today. How about you?
I did my daily essentials. I gotta make sure that my system is properly filtered out. Like my system is filtering out the stuff properly. But oftentimes we don't recognize our own energy and how it disconnect with other people and the right kind of filtering that we need to make sure that our energy in the right place. And you're right about that. One of my big things is all about the challenge. And when I'm talking to people, I'm like, wait a minute, you're not on the same level. Meaning that like intellectually, or I would say intellectually, because I'm very attracted to people intellect, right? Even when I'm in a relationship with other people, like if you're not on the same kind of intellect as me, it's not challenging, or the spirituality depth is not there. I'm like, it's off because those things are important to me. It gets me to think differently. And I look for that stuff the same too with people that help me think differently. And I gotta say, I appreciate you by the way for that. Yeah, you got a challenging way of thinking too.
Thank you. I think that when we realize that when we set boundaries for other people, that learning and recognizing when we sometimes break our own rules and allow
Mm-hmm.
people to cross the lines of the boundaries that we've set. And how does that affect us? And what is that saying to them? And are the boundaries really important? Do they matter? And why do they matter? We've spoken about in the past cutting off the deadbeats, the dead weight, the negativity in our life. That's a boundary that you set. That's a deliberate decision that you make.
Mm.
Surrounding yourself with individuals that want more, are willing to do more, that challenge you, that inspire you, that question you in a good way, that help you towards your growth, your goals, and your dreams. Those are setting boundaries still. The
Mm.
boundaries don't need to be negative always. The boundaries don't, when we say no, it's no to the things that do not serve us. And we are saying yes to the things that do. The things, the people, the time. It's a deliberate choice. Is it easy at first? No. Sometimes when you're learning how to set boundaries and you're trying to juggle all the things, and figure out what's important and what's not important. Will the boundaries change until you figure it out? Sometimes, yes.
You know, I was thinking about the boundary piece when it comes to it's like it's exhausting trying to tell people to stop doing certain things. But when you tell people like these are the right thing to do, that's more energizing. Like stopping people from doing the wrong thing is exhausting. But telling people like this is the right thing to do or helping do the right thing, that's more energizing for me. So sometimes when people think about boundaries, You always think about, I want to stop this person. Just like a kid, it's exhausting. But if you have people see what's the right thing to do and focus on this thing or do this thing where you connect with me, it's easier for them to kind of like take that route. And it's more energizing for me as a person when I'm dealing with people like, oh, do this instead versus stop, stop, stop. And I think that's probably the challenge that people have. What do you think?
I agree. Boundaries aren't selfish. Really, they're a declaration of you being able to say, my purpose, my work, my dreams, I want to protect them. I want to protect my energy. I want to protect my time. I want to be doing the things that bring me joy. I want to be of service to others because the others that I'm serving see the value that I add to them. I have a client
Mm,
and I didn't set boundaries initially. Then I had to rewind because it was no longer serving me. The client wasn't respecting my time. We'd set a time for a meeting and the client would be late. Yes, the person would tell me, I'm on my way, I'll be there in 20 minutes. Okay, but we were supposed to meet at 2 o'clock and now it's 2:35 and you're telling me another 20 minutes. Where's the
mm,
value of my time? Where's the respect for the work that we're doing? Yes, you're a business owner, but so am I. And so I had to backpedal. And I'm going to say 50% of it was the client's fault and 50% of it was my fault because I didn't set those boundaries from the beginning. And so I
mm,
had to go back and set the boundaries so that they were very clear. Was there room for negotiation? No. Was there room for discussion? Yes. You pay me X amount of dollars a month on retainer. For those X dollars that you pay me, you get 4 hours of in-person contact, communication, meeting, whatever you want to call it. You get 4 hours of Jess in person. How you use those 4 hours are completely up to you.
mm,
I don't decide. That's you decide that, not me. But you get 4 hours. So if we're scheduled to meet at 2 o'clock and you show up at 2:45, guess what? You only get 15 more minutes
mm.
because I was there and you weren't. Was that a hard thing for me to have to tell a client that was paying me? Yeah, because what if the client's not okay with that boundary? Is that the client that I want to work with then?
This is why people don't like to do one-on-one coaching. This is exhausting. When you find somebody that doesn't value that one-on-one, they don't understand how precious that is for somebody to sit down one-on-one and just like, I'm with you for the next whatever. And I see why people charge so much for it because that right there, you got to put a high price on so people know, oh, you paid a lot for this. That means you're gonna make it. You know what I'm saying? So
Yes.
I really see how that works out. I was like, yeah, I'm doing a community thing, right? Because with the community, it's not just one person. It's, you decide not to show, that's on you. But I have somebody to give my time too, right? My time, energy, attention, and money too. If you don't show up, that's on you. So I really see why that works out. And when you first starting off as a coach or as a business person, sometimes you don't really understand that until you start like somebody start burning you in a certain way. You're like, okay, I gotta set up these boundaries and these are my rules, right? We talked about the experience transformer process earlier before we start recording. And it's okay, what was the experience you had? Was it bad? Was it good? And you got to figure out, okay, the bad part of it, like what you got to transform from that. Like I got to put up some checkpoints, some checklists here to make sure that this doesn't happen again because people will violate time, which is the most precious thing because oftentimes it's a reflection of how they use their time, right? Oftentimes people are not good with their own time and they treat other people the same way they treat their time, and that doesn't work. So you got to be able to like put a lot of restriction in place for that thing.
Time is the most valuable commodity we have. Once it's used or gone, you can't get it back. I went to a business seminar with Lauren Reidinger. It was called the Blueprint to Success Tour last January in New York City. And she said something that hit home to me. I had never really thought about it in this way before. She says, most people know how much money they have in the bank,
Mm-hmm.
but what no one knows is how much time they have left on earth.
Mm-hmm.
And what are you doing with that time to make a difference, to live your dreams? To what are you doing with that time?
Mm.
And it really gives you the perspective of when you think about, oh shit, I don't know how much time I have. Asher's
Mm.
saying 86, but I don't know about that one, right? Well, you're saying 86, but maybe
Yeah.
it's going to be 106, 96, whatever. You don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But what are you doing with that time? When you set boundaries, it helps you define the use of your time in a way that it serves you, where you set boundaries because your time and your energy are precious. You cannot get them back. Once they're spent, they're gone. But the boundaries allow you to choose how you're going to spend them.
You know, nature does it for us, right? They say you came here from 1 to 86, and that might be the time. Who knows, right? Which is this is the urgency of life right here. This is really deep, by the way, because you're right. We don't know when is the call to home. So therefore, you gotta make the day count. You gotta make it really count, and you gotta make sure the people that are part of the day that they actually really count. So you gotta count the people that you want to be part of your day, and those gotta be really, really valuable people to your journey. So it makes me as a person as at 45 years old. I'm like, okay, who I want to spend my time with? Like he was like, Asher, I can't get you to leave the house. Yes, right. Just because I spent 22 years of my life doing army stuff, and a lot of the time wasn't mine, right? So I'm like, for the next 40 something years I got left on planet Earth, I'm gonna make sure that is the people I want to hang out with. Because I ain't gotta leave my house, Jess. I really don't. But I do it for the people that I really want to connect with. Like I want to. That's my restriction here. You gonna invite me out? I'm like, nah, I'm not going. Right? Because I've partied a lot in my life. I go to a lot of events in my life, but now I don't need to do that stuff anymore if I don't have to. So the person I say yes to, these people I really appreciate hanging out with. So invitation, great. I see him, but I ain't leaving. Right? I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I'm gonna do that. Why? Because I can see the value in that for the rest of my life.
So I'm humbled and privileged that you said yes to my invitation. Oh man.
Yeah.
I think that when I'm going to use our story, a little bit of our story.
Mm-hmm.
I actually put a post about us last night on Instagram that September 2023, I met you for the first time on a Zoom meeting. Mind you, a Zoom meeting that I didn't invite you to, someone else did. So you weren't my friend or my guest at the time, you were somebody else's. And then December of that same year, we actually met in person in
Mm-hmm.
Connecticut at a business seminar. I got to hug you. We took our first picture together and we just connected. The energy was evident. The respect, the friendship just was like instant. And then from
Mm-hmm.
there, we connected as business coach and me coaching you. And then from there, we decided last year, last September, a year to the date that we met almost, to launch this Idea Tennis podcast. And
Mm-hmm.
then now, April, we are about to launch our first book together.
Mm-hmm.
It is amazing how the universe conspires
Mm-hmm.
for you when you put boundaries and set terms to the things that matter and are important for you. The boundaries, in my opinion, help give you direction. Last year was my year of yes. This year is my year of impact. So,
Mm-hmm.
as part of that year of yes, when you asked me to do the podcast, I just said yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that year was about experimenting, growing, learning. The yes had as much value as the no does now because I could not honestly say no to something I didn't know. So, me saying yes to lots of different things last year gave me the opportunity to realize, to know what were the things that served me? What were the things that brought me joy? What were the things that were going to bring me closer to my goals and to ultimately what I want to do to serve others? I said yes to a lot of things. Not all of the things are continuing as a part of my life because they turned into no's now. So the
Mm-hmm.
yes and the no hold equal power, but it's based on how you use them.
It's based on how you transform the one that wasn't useful.
Yes.
Because you actually, this is interesting, by the way. The no's are the one that doesn't work right. Oftentimes are the one that give you the energy or the foresight to see what you need to create kind of boundaries. Because without the thing that doesn't work, you won't notice what kind of boundaries you need to put up. And if you're looking back over the years, the people that you say no to sometimes are the people that would have drained all the energy. Because here's the thing, I was looking at the what do you call it, the timeline you just break down just now, but how we kind of move. I'm surprised you kind of have all those dates narrowed out. It's good. It's good.
The fact finder.
The fact finder. Yeah, yes. But when you have the right kind of people that shows up because of the boundaries, it makes life a lot more different. Because I was thinking about when I used to have so much invitation, so much thing going on, I was missing some of the people that need to show up that I could have said yes to, but I wasn't. I was overflowed based on my calendar, and those people didn't have a space in my life. Right, the right kind of people couldn't fit in because I was having too much bad people in my life, right, so to speak. That was just draining my energy. But when I like cut everybody off, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna start filtering who show up. Then the universe, like I says, conspired for you to put the right people in your life so you can start have good results. But oftentimes we don't get to have that because we got open. It's like open source. Everybody can show up, and then it's too much, and you don't get to see the right people because you can't filter out the wrong people because you don't have your checklists or your checkpoints, and then the bad guy shows up and overrun your whole perimeter.
All right, Asher, I think that we have hit it out of the park with this conversation about boundaries. So before I give my closing notes, I'm going to ask you, how do you set boundaries in your life, both personal and professional?
Hmm. How do I set boundaries? I go by how I feel about people now because I've advanced my intuition a lot, so I can just sense the right kind of people. And once I feel like that person is off, I automatically like no, right? I'm keen at sensing people. So when I get a bad feeling about somebody, I automatically cut them off. Like I ain't got time to waste on that person. So that's one thing when it comes to people. I can read them very well. I can read people very well. So if you don't have that skill set, then maybe you just have people around you that can help you filter out. You know, when we talk about the Kobe, the fact finder, implementer, so forth and so on, then I know that I need people in my life that are good at fact finding or implementing because that's not my skill. So that's one of my filters. So when I recognize a person that has that skill set, like I recognize you, I was talking to even Dr. Renisha was like, yeah, I like that energy because I need people around me like that to help me figure out these things. But you gotta surround yourself with the right kind of people that can help you filter out the people that are not good for your goal or your vision. So that's one thing I use. My intuition, and then people that can help me make a decision on whether or not this thing is good for me or not. And I gotta listen to them because I know that's not my skill set. What about you?
I mean, if you want to go fast, say yes to everything. But if you want to go far, say yes to the right things.
Mm,
Boundaries are not barriers, they are bridges to you being able to live your best life. I'm going to ask everyone as the challenge for the week to set one non negotiable boundary and implement it in their life. Respecting our energy, our purpose, our dreams is incredibly important when we are setting boundaries. Remembering that boundaries aren't negative, they set the terms to how people treat us, how they speak to us, how they value our time. And knowing that yes doesn't always serve you and no always isn't final. I
mm,
think the next time that you are challenged with, is this within my boundaries? Is this going to get me closer to where I want to be? Think about, is it serving you to get to where you want to be? Or is it pushing you away from your dreams, your goals, and your desires? I want people to think of a mantra for the week
mm-hmm,
that's powerful, that helps them stay aligned in this space of boundaries. So mine is, and I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget it. I actually wrote two of them down. I said, my no is powerful and my yes is sacred.
mm.
Protecting my peace and my energy, that's part of my purpose.
Say that again.
So I'd love to hear what your mantras for the week are. Remember to like, share, and comment below so that we can engage with you. And Asher, where could they find you?
Mm. Asher right on all the platform except for Instagram. It's asher.re.sda.
I can be found on Instagram at Success is Your Reward with Jess. You can find me on Facebook by my name. And you can register for my 12-week coaching program, Hustle with Heart, at hustlewithheart.online. And remember, energy is your currency.
Mm.
Choose to use it wisely. Be frugal.
Ooh, and with that, make it an utterly fantastic day.